USNA Class of 92 is a licensed naturopathic physician, licensed acupuncture, and Eastern medicine practitioner. She brings together a wealth of life experience gained from 23 years of active duty in the U.S. Navy with a passion for pursuing vitality and wellness. Kristin has a special interest in working with military veterans and any patient who want to address chronic stress, optimize mental health, and integrate trauma. She blends traditional Chinese medicine, botanical medicine, nutrition, physical movement, and counter-strain to address both emotional and physical pain. Kristin is also trained in psychedelic-assisted therapy. Kristin received her BS in chemistry from the U.S. Naval Academy in 1992. She served as an F-14 naval flight officer with 7 global deployments. She holds a master's in nutrition, a master's of acupuncture and oriental medicine, and a doctor of naturopathic medicine. Kristin has been practicing medicine since 2021 and completed her 2-year residency in 2023. Kristin continues both in private practice in Port Townsend, Washington, and as an associate physician at a clinic in Paulsboro, Washington, near Bremerton. Once again, Kristin's talk is titled Nutrition for Mental Health, Nourishing Yourself for Trauma. Over to you, Kristin.
All right. Hey, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Can we see that okay? Yeah, okay, great. All right. Welcome wherever you are. I encourage you to take a moment and invite in a deep breath, get yourself nice and grounded, and buckle up a little bit. I could write a doctoral thesis on this topic, but we have 30 minutes. So I'm going to scream through several of the slides. They will be made available to you. So I would encourage you, if you have any interest in this, you want some more information, please access the slides to see what's in there. There are some good resources, or reach out to me at any time and I'd be happy to talk more about this. I love nutrition. I love talking food. And this is something I'm really passionate about, and using it in the context of trauma makes it even better. So without further ado, let's jump in. Before I jump in, I'm sorry. I do have a tendency to talk really fast and be a little bit attention deficit. So if I gloss over something, say something too fast, something you don't understand, please chat to Kristin Vance and she will interrupt me and I'll clarify what I said. I want to make sure that you get the most out of this today. Okay, I don't have any conflicts of interest. A quick word on mental health disorders. Like, I'm a naturopathic physician and acupuncturist. I'm not a psychiatrist or a mental health professional. And nutritionists are not mental health professionals either. They're nutritionists. So if you're looking for somebody to talk nutrition, find a nutritionist. This webinar is not designed to diagnose or treat eating disorders, depression, anxiety, or trauma. Any specific guidance on nutrition should come from an individual consultation with a qualified and licensed trauma-informed nutritionist if you're looking for help with things like eating disorders. I would also encourage you that if you do think you have an eating disorder and you have not had any treatment for that, that you seek out a qualified and licensed mental health provider, not just a nutritionist, who specializes in eating disorders. This is its own thing and it needs to be treated as such. And if you need help finding a qualified provider of any kind, whether that be nutritionist, functional medicine provider, integrative physician, whatever it happens to be, reach out to us and we'll help you find the person that's gonna help get you on the path to healing, okay? The goals of the lecture are briefly to look at nutrition from a completely different perspective. I will delve into some science, specifically how trauma and chronic stress impact our metabolic physiology, how our hormone systems are interrelated. And I want to show you some really easy ways to impact your mental health through the context of nutrition and food. Mainly that will be mindfulness, but I'll get into that more. And I want to give you a little bit of low-hanging fruit just to get you a taste of what you can do. I also want to provide a couple of notes on sleep and nutrients for sleep support, because it can make a big difference in your overall path to healing, just getting good nutritive sleep. And then some things on herbs and teas as nutrition, because I really think they get forgotten. And from my perspective of a Chinese practitioner, there is no nutrition without herbs and teas. A little bit on mindful eating. And if we have time at the end, I'm going to talk about some additional thoughts that I have on food in general. So there's my background that we don't need to go over it. I think the salient points are at the bottom there, using acupuncture and naturopathy for trauma-informed practice. And I've run a lot of things in with that. Before we get any further, I just think it's important to ask, what are we feeding? I ran across this quote from Josefa Rangel while I was reading an article on intergenerational trauma. And I think it really pinpoints where we go off the rails a little bit in our Western allopathic approach to nutrition. It wasn't until I began apprenticing with the yogi and mystic King Carroll several years ago that I began to understand my dissonance with this pristine diet approach. He explained that radiant health derives from nourishing all aspects of life, not from simply maximizing micronutrients. What's missing from our nutritional science is the acknowledgement of what actually nourishes our spirit and feeds our embodiment, which is unconditional love and care. True nourishment is less about guzzling down a green juice or eating a packaged kale salad than it is about infusing warmth and kindness into the food we prepare for ourselves and our loved ones. It's really, really important. And on the back of that, I will add this, also a quote from Dr. Rangel: over time, feeding and caring for my being in this way, along with nourishing other diverse aspects of my life, built my fortitude to transform family meals into a time of warmth and care, ending a legacy of trauma and neglect that cannot be overstated. That feeding and nourishing ourselves is not just what we're sticking in our mouths at mealtime, it's so much more. Personally, I suspect that the single most impactful thing that we do when we're feeding ourselves is with our own judgment. And if we've experienced trauma and particularly sexual assault, we're constantly judging ourselves. It was my fault. I'm the one who's wrong here. I'm broken. If that is the case, perhaps then the single most important thing we can do to impact how we're nourishing ourselves in the big picture is to remove the judgment, open the door to curiosity, and welcome the idea that we're doing the best we can in any given moment. And then you open the door for things to really be able to nourish you. From the naturopathic medicine standpoint, we have 6 principles upon which we base our practice. I think nutrition directly impacts 3 of them, which is the healing power of nature. Yeah, we can walk in the forest, but food and water and air are the 3 things that we interact with most on planet Earth as far as nourishing ourselves. And nutrition can really get to the heart of treating a root cause, maybe not to the point of actually treating the trauma that comes through other things, perhaps, but in supporting the system to be able to be resilient and absorb that healing from a very, very fundamental aspect. And then nutrition totally treats the whole person. Like nutrition doesn't just feed your stomach or your brain; it feeds the whole body. And it's important to remember that when you're choosing how you want to approach your nutrition. My approach is decidedly non-clinical from a Western allopathic perspective, and I say that because Chinese medicine is a completely different paradigm. And the approach of 5-element acupuncture in particular looks very woo-woo to the Western perspective, but it is not. It's clinical. It's 3,000 years old and based in the language of nature: hot, cold, wind, damp, whatever it happens to be. But from Chinese medicine and a scientific method standpoint, it's extremely clinical. I do base a lot of my approach on a vast array of modern science literature, etc., but I use it as guidance and not necessarily directive. I look at food as physiological, spiritual, cultural, emotional, and environmental. And I don't want to make it too big because you get to the point where you're like, whoa, like, I don't even know where to begin. You just throw all these things at me. But I'm just kind of opening the door to the idea that, going back to the initial quote, that nutrition is more than just a kale smoothie. There are so many things that go into nourishing our souls and our spirits and our bodies, that perhaps by nourishing ourselves from the spiritual or cultural aspect, we can make up for a physiological nutritional program that is less than optimal. Hopefully that makes sense. And then overarching, how can I get my patients, how can I help you approach food so that we're not weaponizing it? Because I think a lot of us do. I've had a history of disordered eating, disordered exercise, name something that we do too much of, or we try to over control. We weaponize it to, punish ourselves or soothe ourselves in some way. It's really important if we're going to get the most out of our food is to remove the judgment that comes with it and be okay with anything that is less than perfect. Anything less than perfect is perfectly okay. I'm not going to get too much into this. I do want to come down to the bottom bullet that says, remember that that physical presence you have inside this body, and then that internal presence, call it whatever you want, call it chi, call it prana, call it the soul, call it the spirit, I don't, whatever that happens to be, they both get injured when it comes to trauma, and they both need to be nourished. Nourishing one always supports the other. It's like a yin and yang of nourishment. So again, if you have not enough of one, you can use the other to support it. From a clinical Western approach, why do nutrients matter? Because, go down to the bottom bullet real quick, too much usage where we speed up the machine, we don't replace it with enough building blocks in a healthy diet, we don't have the ability to repair, and it results in the breakdown of the machine. So let's back up a little bit. Trauma leads to hypervigilance. We are constantly in sympathetic activation. We're chronically activated. We're chronically secreting stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline being the two I'm thinking about. And then we do things like we sleep poorly and we throw caffeine on top. What does that do? It increases the demand for resources to build things. Building stress hormones takes building blocks, building neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, melatonin, that takes building blocks. This depletes your storage tanks if you're not putting in the things your body needs to build these things. And then if you're always in sympathetic, i.e. fight or flight, you are not in the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. So you remove the ability for your body to repair the system. And then on top of that, if you're not eating a diet that is supporting these things, you're not repleting the storage tanks. Repletion also includes sleep, adequate hydration, appropriate psychosocial and emotional nourishment, connection, healthy touch, appropriate spiritual nourishment. So you can see how it's the, I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately, but it's the Lucille Ball, if you guys are familiar with her at the line of chocolates going by, and she's trying to put them in the box and she can't, and eventually she's trying to shove them in her mouth, and eventually she just gets overwhelmed and then the system breaks down. It's very similar that you speed up the engine because you're constantly in fight or flight, you're not feeding the machine appropriately, and you run out of your ability to repair. That's why nutrients matter. So a quick little bit on the physiology of stress. I don't want to anchor on this. It's a lot. I am still parsing through this. I've been in medicine now for a total of 7 years, and I'm a chemistry major, and this is still confusing to me. Just know that these wheels are all connected. Your stress hormones, your dopamine, your digestive health, your ATP cycle, they're all related. And when one speeds up or slows down, it affects all the rest of them. Let's not get too much into that. Cortisol, primary stress hormone, it's meant to be a short-term fix, i.e. provide you with an increase in energy, blood glucose, helps with adrenaline, but it's not designed to be a long-term thing, even though that's what happens to our bodies when we experience trauma. Notice all the effects that cortisol has with your entire body. So if you are constantly excreting cortisol, you're in a state of sympathetic activation, it's going to affect every system in your body. All right. Things that deplete nutrients, in addition to a chronically activated system that is going to use up building blocks that you need to build things like serotonin and dopamine, in particular, is what I'm thinking in terms of depression and anxiety. We have a lot of things in Western culture that further deplete nutrients. If you're on metformin, which is a diabetic drug, oral birth control pills, statins. I mean, NSAIDs are a big one, and antibiotics are a big one. And then for all us overperformers in the room, anything that's going to further elevate your metabolic rate, stress, excessive exercise, illness. People don't realize when they're sick, they are burning through blood sugar and and they're getting their metabolism going much, much faster than they normally would. So with all that, how do we not weaponize food? This is my number one way of introducing the idea of not using food to punish ourselves. And it's a challenge. I still struggle with this personally, and I've been doing this for a really long time. But I think the number one thing to remember is there are no shoulds in a sustainable nutrition program. There are no, let me say that again. There are no shoulds in a sustainable nutrition program. There's no I should be doing a green smoothie. There's no I should be eating more vegetables. There's no I should be eating less ice cream. There's no shoulds. The nutrition program that is going to work for you is the one that provides you with nutrients and doesn't stress you out, because the more you stress out, even overeating, the more you're going to continue doing what you've already been doing. Does that make sense? So instead of stressing out about food, let's enjoy it, because I'm here to tell you, at least in my perspective, eating is one of the best things I do all day. I love it. If I'm not eating, I'm thinking about food, I'm preparing food, and I'm cleaning up from food, I'm shopping for food. It's like I'm obsessed with it. But I also want to enjoy it and not overdo it. So I try to suspend my judgment as much as possible. What is mindful eating? It is a process of creating a healthier relationship with food. And I think you probably all understand what it might look like to have an unhealthy relationship with food, whether you're judging the food, you're judging yourself for what you're eating. And if your experience has been anything like mine, I'm an N of one, but I know that I've talked to people who have had similar experiences where other people are judging you for what you're eating. You're sitting in the wardroom, you're sitting in King Hall, and people are looking at you and making comments on your weight and judging your body and making actual comments on your body, even though it's inappropriate. We internalize all that, and it ruins our ability to enjoy our food. That's a journey and that's a process, but we're going to start with baby steps. We want you to get the most out of your meal, and a good way to do that is just, and I know that this sounds oversimplified, but mindfulness is just being mindful. It's being aware of your thoughts, your emotions. What are the physical sensations? What are your habits around food? What are your beliefs around food? I believe this is bad for me. I believe this is good for me. You might be surprised at some of those beliefs that are not correct. I thought forever that I had to eat oatmeal because oatmeal was good for me. Oatmeal is not good for me. It might be good for you, but oatmeal is definitely not good for me. So it was a belief pattern that I had to change. And just because kale is good for some people does not mean that kale is good for you. Just because raw foods are good for some people does not mean that raw foods are good for you. So looking at your beliefs around food and how they're not serving you, and learning different ways to approach food so that the food that you eat does serve you and does not create excess stress. Recognizing types of hunger. Wow, that's part of the journey also, and it takes getting in tune with your body, being back inside your body, not dissociating, so that you can recognize some of these things. When is my body actually hungry? When am I emotionally hungry? When is my heart hungry? Like, am I eating because I need some sort of connection, or am I eating because I just ran 5 miles and wow, I really need some protein? This is a process, but being mindful and looking, and the first step is just to step back and not stop what you're doing, but just be aware of what you're doing. And then getting in touch with all six senses while you're eating. What is the taste? What is the texture? What is the aroma and the sounds? What is your intuition telling you about what you're eating? And and I do get that when we are stuck on deployments, we're stuck in the field, or we're stuck eating in the wardroom. We do not have a lot of control over what we are given on the food line. All I can say is make the best of it. And then when you have the ability, when you're back in your stateroom or back in whatever, that you have things that are on hand to be able to make up for what the wardroom is not providing you in all of these things: taste, texture, aroma, sounds, sights, and intuition. Okay. What else is mindful eating? It is being present, which is like, well, what does that even mean? That means having your mind focused on what you're doing instead of focused on a TV or a computer or a checklist or your phone or some sort of distraction. I've been known to say, if you're going to eat Fritos, eat that Frito like it is the most nourishing and it is the best thing that happened to you all day, and get the most out of that Frito. Because I'm telling you, the power of intention when you are focused on the best of what you have in front of you instead of some other thing is going to really help you pull the most nutrition out of your food. The next thing, slowing down while you eat, chewing your food. I can't tell you how many patients that I've talked to were just chewing their food, adjusted their digestion in a way that was almost miraculous. Like, I can't believe it. All I did was start chewing my food and suddenly my digestion is normal. It's magical because your stomach doesn't have teeth and it's not your stomach's job to chew your food for you. Your stomach is designed to start adding acid and digestive enzymes and break down all those tiny bits. But if there's a large chunk in there that, that chicken nugget that you just ate from the dining commons has gone in there whole, your stomach can't do anything with that. And you're going to get no nutrition from it. So if you want to get the most out of what you're eating, please slow down, breathe in between bites, and chew your food and enjoy it like it's the last meal you're ever going to have, and it will be awesome. And then set the intention for nourishment on all levels: emotional, physical, spiritual. Nobody who's sitting next to you in the dining commons or in King Hall or wherever it happens to be in the wardroom, nobody knows what's going on in your head, right? So you can do whatever you want as far as stating an intention, saying a prayer, whispering a thought of gratitude, whatever is comfortable for you from your spiritual approach or your mindfulness or wellness approach, so that you have set the intention. Like, I can't stress enough the power of intention for making what is in front of you, even if it looks like it's awful. And when I say awful, I mean like bland mashed potatoes from, the O3 level wardroom. You can still make it a good meal. And it sounds silly, but I'm going to challenge you to give it a try and see what happens. All right. I want to get clinical for a second because I want to give you something to take home, something that's actionable, right? So when I have somebody come to me and ask me, where can I get the most bang for my buck? This is what I tell them. And I've got two slides here. I've got this slide and this one. So we're going to start. Number one nutrient that we do not get enough of, aside from water and magnesium, is fiber. And fiber is so important for so many things. I don't have time to go into them all, but just suffice to say that, gosh, I think we could use more fiber. Omega-3 fatty acids, antioxidants, vitamin D. It's more of a hormone than anything else. We act like it's a vitamin, but it's a hormone. Electrolytes, trace minerals, and then I've outlined magnesium and B vitamins. At the end, I'm going to talk about a resource that is quite clinical, that is a really good resource for learning a lot more about these. But suffice to say that 75% of the American public is deficient in magnesium. And even if you ate a perfect diet, just based on the way, and this goes back to the environmental piece, the way our farmland is, our food, even if it's organic, is not as packed with nutrition as it used to be. Can we get enough? Maybe, but we'd have to eat a perfect diet. And I don't know about you, but I don't have time to do that. Even if I wanted to, my bandwidth is pretty narrow. So I've got other options if I need to. And then the B vitamins, so important, specifically in the context of mental health, because so many mental health conditions, schizophrenia, depression, anxiety, ADHD, Pyrrhus disorder, autism, all show deficiencies or excesses in certain B vitamins. And so that's particularly important. And so let's get some really easy ideas, things that we can fit into our narrow bandwidth for foods that we can eat to maximize our nutrition. And you're going to notice some overlap here. So hopefully you'll find one of these or two of these that you can overlap to get fiber and antioxidants and some other things, so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel with 16 different things. Hopefully that makes sense. Fresh ground black seed is one of your best friends, especially if you have hormone issues. Chia seeds, Oh my God, these are so important. And if you're going to do things like seed cycling for hormone health, pumpkin seeds, sunflower seeds, fresh ground flaxseed, and chia seeds are your best friends. Where else can you get fiber? Avocados, nori, cruciferous vegetables, greens, apples, pears, and prunes. And these things, to the best of my knowledge, are readily available, at least in certain times, in environments where nutrition might be a little bit of a challenge, i.e., abortion. Omega 3s, avocados, nuts and seeds. Boy, nuts and seeds sure are portable. Something to think about. Antioxidants, anything's black, blue, blackberries, blueberries, beets, tart cherries, again, the green things, and some of my favorite algae, spirulina, and chlorella. Oh my God. Um, so packed with nutrition. And spices, I'm going to talk about at the end, so I won't waste time. And then goji berries, one of my favorite herbs, and I call it an herb, goji berries, high in selenium and antioxidants, just amazing. And then electrolytes, sea vegetables and greens again, trace
Yes,
minerals, nuts and seeds again. Did you need to interrupt?
yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say you have under 2 minutes before Q&A.
Okay. All right. Let's speed it up here. Key nutrients for sleep. We don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but I do want to make a note that magnesium is your friend. If you have questions about it, please ask me. And alcohol, late meals, blue light, and media, not your friends. Alcohol in particular. And if you struggle with alcohol and sleep, I would highly recommend you use that as a point of focus when you're working through your therapy or working with a therapist. And oh my God, you want an easy thing to do to improve your nutrition. These are teas. We call them herbs, but tea's not just brown water. Tea is medicinal and it's easy. So go back to this list when you get access to the slides and see how many of these you can't find at your local grocery store and take them with you wherever you go. And oh my God, that's one of the easiest way to get nutrition. These things, magic, pure magic. All right, additional thoughts. Don't buy your supplements from Amazon. Buy them from the root company or the source company. Digestive support. Oh, uh, okay, yeah, I don't have time to talk about it, unfortunately. Let's go for the bang for the buck. Greens powders, nuts and seeds, berries, teas, and eggs. We didn't have a lot of time to talk about. If you're sensitive to eggs, that's unfortunate. But if you do have the ability to get eggs, they are an unbelievable source of bioavailable protein, selenium, and choline. Choline is really important for brain health. Selenium is important for immune health and detoxification, and then blood sugar control I can talk about all day. So
And you're actually
let's,
having more time. I do apologize. I was
yeah,
doing
that's okay.
You have
All
actually
right.
more minutes to talk and then 5 minutes of questions.
Okay, well, let me just talk about this book real quick, the one I have highlighted, and then we can go on to questions because I'll bet there are a few. Nutrient Power, Heal Your Biochemistry. This is by a guy who has done a lot of research with regards to a lot of the B vitamins as it relates to specific mental health um, conditions that I mentioned before: anxiety, depression, autism, ADHD, and schizophrenia are the top ones that I can think of off my head. If you have any interest at all in nutrition and you have an interest in mental health, or you think that there's something in there that might help you, if your intuition is going, boom, that sounds like a really interesting thing, I encourage you to pick up a copy of this book and dig into it a little bit. It's absorbable. You don't need a biochemistry degree to understand it. It will give you a really good appreciation for why certain key nutrients are affecting your mental health. Yeah, and I'll just leave it at that. I'd like to open it up for questions and clarifications for people because I imagine there are probably a few.